The small alien ship moved slowly through the asteroid field around Earth's moon. Taiho pressed his thin blue hands against the viewing port and stared at the planet below. He had never seen anything like it before. Most worlds were either too hot or too cold, too wet or too dry. This one seemed just right. Green and blue mixed together like paint on an artist's canvas. White clouds drifted across the surface like cotton balls floating in water. "Are you sure about this?" asked his pilot, a nervous Veltari named Kryn. His large black eyes darted between the control panels and the human ships that surrounded them. "These humans might not want to help us. They might want to eat us or sell us as slaves." Taiho shook his head. "We have no choice. The Krex destroyed Veltara 2 last week. Veltara 3 fell yesterday. Our homeworld will be next. If we do not find help soon, our people will all be dead." The human ships were strange. They looked like metal boxes with engines stuck on the back. No pretty curves or smooth lines like Veltari ships, just hard angles and thick armor plating. They reminded Taiho of the war machines his grandfather used to tell stories about. Old things from a time when his people still fought wars. A voice came through their communication system. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, which surprised Taiho. Most new species took years to learn the common tongue properly. Veltari. "Vessel. This is Captain Minji of the Earth Defense Corps. Please follow our escort ships to Station Kepler. Do not deviate from the flight path or you will be fired upon." The voice was calm, but firm. Not threatening exactly, but Taiho could hear the iron underneath the words. These humans did not make empty promises. 3 human fighters took positions around their small ship. Up close, Taiho could see that each fighter was covered in weapons. Missile pods, laser cannons, and other things he could not identify. The Veltari had given up war technology long ago. They believed in peace and trade and diplomacy. Looking at these human war machines, Taiho wondered if that had been a mistake. Station Kepler hung in space like a massive metal flower. Its arms, stretched out in all directions, bristling with communication arrays and defense platforms. Ships came and went from dozens of docking bays. Most were human vessels, but Taiho spotted a few alien ships as well. Traders probably, or diplomats like himself. Their ship was guided into a small docking bay. The moment they landed, human soldiers surrounded them. They wore black armor that covered every inch of their bodies. Their weapons were ready but not pointed directly at the Veltari ship. Taiho took this as a good sign. "Ambassador Taiho," the lead soldier called through the communication system, "please exit your vessel with your hands visible. You will be scanned for weapons and biological threats. Do not resist, or you will be restrained." Taiho looked at Kryn, who was shaking with fear. "Stay with the ship," Taiho said. "If something goes wrong, try to get home. Tell them we tried." The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Taiho stepped out into the human station. The gravity was a bit heavy for his species, but not unbearable. The air smelled clean, but strange. It had a metallic taste that he had never experienced before. The humans were bigger than he had expected. Even their females were taller than most Veltari males. They moved with a fluid grace that reminded him of predators from his home world. But their eyes held intelligence, not just hunger. Captain Minji stepped forward and removed her helmet. Taiho was surprised to see that she looked young, probably no older than 30 in human years. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight knot. Her dark eyes studied him with the intensity of a scientist examining a new specimen. "Welcome to Station Kepler, Ambassador Taiho," she said. Her voice was the same one from the communication system. "I am Captain Minji. I understand you have come seeking assistance." Taiho bowed in the traditional Veltari greeting. "Thank you for receiving us, Captain Minji. Yes, we desperately need help. Our people are dying." She gestured for him to follow her. They walked through corridors filled with humans going about their daily work. Some wore military uniforms like Captain Minji. Others dressed in civilian clothes. All of them stopped what they were doing to stare at Taiho as he passed. He could not tell if they were curious or hostile. They entered a meeting room with a large table in the center. Human officers sat around it. their uniforms decorated with symbols that meant nothing to Taiho. At the head of the table sat a man with graying hair and hard eyes. His uniform had more decorations than the others. "This is Commander Dong-hyun," Captain Minji said. "He handles military affairs for this sector." Commander Dong-hyun looked Taiho up and down like a merchant examining goods for sale. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair that had been adjusted for Taiho's smaller frame. "Tell us about your problem." Taiho took a deep breath and began his prepared speech. "Honored humans, I come before you as a representative of the Veltari Confederation. We are a peaceful people who have lived in harmony for over 1,000 years. We trade with many species across this part of the galaxy. We have never sought war or conquest." He paused and activated a small device. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing a star map of Veltari space. 3 systems glowed with soft blue light. "This was our territory 1 year ago," Taiho continued. 3 star systems, 12 inhabited worlds, over 2 billion of my people. We thought we were safe. We had trade agreements with our neighbors. We had defensive pacts with other peaceful species. The display changed, showing the same map with 2 of the systems now glowing red. 6 months ago, the Krex Dominion began their expansion into our space. They gave no warning. They made no demands. They simply attacked. Commander Dong-hyun leaned forward. "Tell us about these Krex." Taiho's hands trembled as he adjusted the controls. The display showed images of Krex warriors. They looked like a nightmare cross between reptiles and insects. Tall and thin, covered in hard scales with long claws and rows of sharp teeth. Their ships were sleek and fast, painted in colors that hurt the eyes to look at. "They are a warrior species from the edge of the galaxy," Taiho said. "They do not trade or negotiate. They take what they want and kill everything else. They have conquered dozens of worlds in the past century. No one has ever stopped them." The images changed to show the aftermath of Krex attacks. Cities burned to ash. Ships floating dead in space. Bodies scattered across battlefields. Captain Minji made a soft sound of disgust. Several of the human officers shifted uncomfortably. "In their chairs. They move like a plague," Taiho continued. "First they destroy our orbital defenses. Then they land armies on the surface. They kill everyone they find. Men, women, children, elderly. They do not take slaves or prisoners. They simply eliminate all life and move on to the next world." Commander Dong-hyun studied the tactical data that accompanied the images. "What kind of defenses did you have?" "We maintained a small patrol fleet," Taiho admitted. "Mostly converted civilian ships with light weapons. We had not fought a real war in over 800 years. We had forgotten how." "And now?" Captain Minji asked. "Now we have nothing," Taiho said. His voice broke slightly. "The Krex destroyed our shipyards on Veltara 2. Our government fled to SciFiPrime when 3 fell yesterday. We have maybe 50 ships left, mostly transports and civilian vessels. The Krex have over 300 warships moving toward our homeworld." He deactivated the holographic display and looked around the table at the human faces. Some showed sympathy. Others seemed calculating, as if they were trying to decide if helping the Veltari would benefit them. "What exactly are you asking for?" Commander Dong-hyun said. Taiho reached into his robes and pulled out a datapad. He placed it on the table and slid it toward the commander. "We can offer you rare minerals from our mining worlds, advanced medical technology, exclusive trading rights in our territory, even territorial concessions if necessary." Commander Dong-hyun picked up the datapad and scrolled through the information. His eyebrows rose slightly. Captain Minji leaned over to read along with him. "This is generous," she said. "What do you want in return?" "Ships," Taiho said simply. "We need warships to defend our home world. We know humans are new to the galactic community, but your ships look strong. If you could spare maybe 20 or 30 vessels, we might have a chance." The humans exchanged glances. Something passed between them that Taiho could not interpret. Captain Minji looked back at him with an expression he could not read. 20 or 30 ships, she repeated. "I know it is a lot to ask," Taiho said quickly, "but we are desperate. If you cannot spare that many, even 10 would help. Even 5. We are not proud. We will take whatever assistance you can provide. Commander Dongyun set down the data pad and leaned back in his chair. He studied Taiho for a long moment before speaking. Ambassador, are you asking us to go to war with the Krex Dominion? I am asking you to help us survive, Taiho replied. If that means war, then yes. But we do not expect you to fight our battles for us. We only need enough ships to make the Krex think twice about attacking our home world. Captain Minji stood up and walked to the viewing port. She stared out at the stars for several minutes while the room remained silent. Finally, she turned back to face Taiho. We will help you, she said. Taiho felt tears running down his face. He had not dared to hope that these strange humans would agree to assist them. Thank you, he whispered. Admiral Ji-hoon stood in the center of the Terran High Command chamber, watching as holographic displays showed star maps and fleet positions throughout human space. The room buzzed with activity as dozens of officers worked at their stations. Data flowed across screens faster than most people could read, but Ji-hoon absorbed it all with the ease of someone who had been doing this for 30 years. The emergency session had been called 6 hours after Ambassador Taiho left Station Kepler. Word of the Veltari situation had spread through the human military hierarchy like wildfire. Now every senior officer in Sol system was either physically present or connected via quantum communication link. The Veltari are expecting maybe 20 ships, said Captain Minji through the communication system. Her image flickered slightly on the main display as the signal traveled from Station Kepler, 30 at most. They seemed shocked when I suggested that number might not be enough. General Kyungmin shook her head. She was a small woman with silver hair and scars on her hands from her days as a combat engineer. They do not understand human thinking. Most species fight with what they have available. We fight with what we need to win. The question is whether we should get involved at all, said Admiral Sunho from Mars Command. His weathered face showed the kind of skepticism that came from decades of military service. These Veltari are not our allies. We have no treaties with them. Why should human blood be spilled for alien problems? Dr. So-young stepped forward from her position near the xenobiology displays. She was younger than most of the military officers, but her expertise in alien psychology had proven valuable many times. I have been studying the data Ambassador Taiho provided. The Krex are not just conquerors, they are exterminators. She activated her own holographic display, showing detailed analysis of Krex behavior patterns. Look at this footage from their previous campaigns. They do not occupy worlds after conquest. They strip them of resources and then sterilize the surface. Every living thing dies. The images were horrific. Planets reduced to barren rock. Cities melted into glass. Forests burned to ash. Even the oceans had been poisoned on some worlds. They are apex predators from a death world, Dr. So-young continued. Their entire species evolved around the concept of total warfare. They cannot comprehend concepts like mercy or surrender. To them, every other species is either prey or a future threat to be eliminated. Admiral Ji-hoon studied the tactical data with growing interest. How many ships do they have in total? Intelligence estimates suggest around 800 combat vessels, replied Commander Donghyun from his station. They operate in small fleets of 50 to 100 ships each. They have never faced serious resistance, so they have never needed to concentrate their forces. And they are moving 300 ships against the Veltari homeworld? Correct. The largest single fleet deployment in Krex history. They want to make sure there are no survivors to warn other species. Admiral Ji-hoon walked to the central command platform and placed his hands on the control interface. Immediately, every display in the room synchronized to show what he was accessing. Star charts appeared showing human territory, Veltari space, and the approaching Krex fleet. If we are going to do this, he said slowly, we do it properly. The Veltari think 20 ships is a major commitment. They have no idea what real warfare looks like. General Kyungmin smiled grimly. You want to activate the war protocol? I want to send a message that will echo across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years, Ji-hoon replied. No species threatens innocent civilians in human space without consequences. The room fell silent. The Terran War Protocol had been developed during humanity's expansion into space, but it had never been fully implemented. Most human conflicts had been resolved through negotiation or limited military action. The protocol was designed for only one scenario: total war against an existential threat. Admiral Sunho leaned forward in his chair. "Ji-hoon, are you sure about this? Once we activate the protocol, there is no going back. Every ship, every soldier, every resource in human space gets mobilized." "The Kreks have been expanding for over a century," Ji-hoon said. "They have destroyed dozens of civilizations. Billions of innocent people have died because no one was willing to stand up to them. If we do not stop them now, they will keep growing until they threaten Earth itself." He turned to address the entire room. "I am not talking about sending mercenaries to help the Veltari. I am talking about ending the Kreks' dominion permanently." Dr. Soyoung pulled up psychological profiles of various Kreks leaders. The Kreks respect only strength. They have never encountered a species willing to fight them with equal brutality. Most civilizations surrender after losing a few battles. Those that do resist use defensive strategies. "What are you suggesting?" asked General Kyungmin. "I am suggesting we teach them what human warfare actually looks like," Ji-hoon replied. "We do not fight to defend territory or protect trade routes. When humans go to war, we go to win completely." The debate continued for 2 hours. Some officers argued for limited intervention. Others suggested staying out of the conflict entirely. But gradually, consensus began to form around Admiral Ji-hoon's position. The Kreks represented exactly the kind of threat that humanity had spent centuries preparing to face. Finally, Admiral Ji-hoon called for a formal vote. "All in favor of activating the Terran War Protocol against the Kreks' dominion?" Hands rose around the room. Electronic votes registered from remote participants. When the count finished, the result was overwhelming. 37 in favor, 8 opposed, 3 abstentions. "Motion carried," Ji-hoon announced. "General Kyungmin, begin immediate mobilization of all fleet assets. I want every combat-capable ship in human space ready for deployment within 72 hours. General Kyungmin's fingers flew over her control interface. All across human space, military bases received priority alerts. Civilian ships were commandeered for support roles. Reservists were called to active duty. The entire human war machine began spinning up to full power. Captain Wu Jin was eating lunch in the officers' mess aboard the heavy cruiser Retribution when the alert came through. The lights dimmed briefly as the ship's systems switched to combat. Readiness. Emergency sirens wailed throughout the vessel. "All hands to battle stations," announced the ship's artificial intelligence. "This is not a drill. Repeat, all hands to battle stations." Wu Jin dropped his fork and ran for the bridge. Around him, hundreds of crew members moved with practiced efficiency. The Retribution was one of humanity's newest warships, armed with the latest weapons and defenses. Wu Jin had commanded her for 2 years, but they had never seen real combat. "Report," he called as he entered the bridge. "War protocol activation confirmed," replied his executive officer, Commander Hiram. "We are ordered to rendezvous with Battle Group 7 at coordinates Alpha 779. "Battle Group 7? How many ships?" 112 combat vessels, sir, plus support ships." Wu Jin whistled softly. He had never seen a fleet that large except in training exercises. "Any word on our mission?" "Alien species called the Kreks are threatening civilians. We are going to stop them." Within hours, similar scenes played out across human space. Captain Jisoo received orders aboard the battleship Indomitable. Commander Unji prepared her destroyer squadron for immediate departure. Lieutenant Sangho helped coordinate supply runs for the growing fleet. The human response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Most species maintained small defensive forces designed to protect their territory. Humans had built something different, a military machine capable of projecting power across interstellar distances. Back on Station Kepler, Ambassador Taiho waited anxiously for news about human assistance. Captain Minji had promised to contact him within 24 hours with details about the ships they could provide. He spent the time reviewing tactical data, and trying to figure out how 20 or 30 human vessels could possibly save his people. His pilot, Kryn, paced nervously around their small quarters. Maybe we should contact other species too, he suggested. The Altarians have a decent fleet. The Zenthari Collective might help for the right price. We do not have time, Tejo replied. The Krex will reach Veltara Prime in less than 2 weeks. Even if other species agreed to help, they could not mobilize their forces fast enough. A chime indicated an incoming communication. Tejo activated the display, expecting to see Captain Minji's face. Instead, Admiral Jihoon appeared on screen. His expression was serious, but not unfriendly. Ambassador Tejo, Jihoon said. I am Admiral Jihoon of the Terran Fleet. I understand. You have requested military assistance against the Krex Dominion. Yes, Admiral, Tejo replied. Captain Minji said you might be able to spare some ships to help defend our home world. We have reviewed your situation and made our decision. The human fleet will depart for Veltari space within 48 hours. Tejo felt a surge of relief. Thank you, Admiral. How many ships can you provide? 20? 30? Admiral Jihoon paused for a moment before answering. All of them. I am sorry, Admiral, I do not understand all of what. All of our ships, Ambassador. Every combat vessel in human space. 847 warships, plus support craft. The room spun around Tejo. He gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling over. The edge of Veltari space looked peaceful from a distance. 3 Veltari escort ships waited at the designated coordinates, their hulls gleaming silver against the backdrop of distant stars. Captain Rabin stood on the bridge of his vessel, watching the empty space where the human fleet was supposed to appear. Are you sure they are coming? Asked his communications officer, a nervous young female named Lyra. It has been 6 hours since the scheduled rendezvous time. They will come, Rabin replied, though he was beginning to have doubts himself. Ambassador Tejo said they promised to help us. The humans were an unknown quantity in galactic affairs. They had only made contact with the wider galaxy 50 years ago, and they kept to themselves mostly. Some traders had dealt with them, but few species knew much about their military capabilities. Rabin's sensor operator suddenly straightened at his station. Captain, I am detecting gravitational disturbances at the edge of sensor range. Something large is approaching. How large? Rabin asked. I am not sure. The readings are off the scale. Space began to shimmer like water disturbed by a stone. Reality twisted and folded as dozens of human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel simultaneously. The Veltari had never seen anything like it. Most species arrived one ship at a time to avoid dangerous gravitational interactions. Captain, the sensor operator whispered, I count 20 ships. No, 30. No, wait. More ships kept appearing. Massive battleships that dwarfed anything in the Veltari fleet. Sleek cruisers bristling with weapon systems. Squadrons of fighters and bombers. Support vessels carrying supplies and equipment. How many? Rabin demanded. I cannot get an accurate count, the operator replied. My sensors keep detecting new contacts. 100, 200. They are still coming. The human fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation. Ships arranged in perfect formation, maintaining precise distances and vectors. Rabin had commanded vessels for 20 years, but he had never seen such discipline and coordination. A communication signal reached his ship. The voice that spoke was calm and professional, with only a slight accent that marked it as coming from the human homeworld. Veltari vessels, this is Admiral Jihoon aboard the battleship Sovereign. We are ready to proceed to your capital system. Rabin found his voice after several attempts. Admiral, this is Captain Rabin. How many ships did you bring? Enough, Admiral Jihoon replied simply. But there are hundreds of them. I can see battleships larger than our orbital stations. This is more firepower than most species possess in their entire military. Captain Rabin, we understand the Krex are a serious threat. We do not take half measures when civilian lives are at stake. Rabin's communications officer was frantically working at her station, trying to get an accurate count of human vessels. Captain, she said in a shaking voice, I am reading over 800 combat ships plus at least 200 support vessels. The number was incomprehensible. The Veltari Confederation at its height had maintained maybe 50 patrol boats and a few dozen armed merchants. The approaching Krex fleet of 300 ships had seemed impossibly large. Now humans had arrived with nearly 3 times that number. Admiral Jihoon, Rabin said carefully. We asked for help defending our world, not for you to conquer the sector. We are not here to conquer anything, Admiral Jihoon replied. We are here to eliminate a threat to innocent people. Please, provide navigation data to your capital system. Meanwhile, deep in Krex space, War Leader Vorthak reviewed the final preparations for the assault on Veltara Prime. His fleet had grown to 312 vessels, the largest force ever assembled by the Krex Dominion. Victory was certain. The Veltari have withdrawn their remaining ships to orbit around their homeworld, reported his intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Kekstar. They appear to be preparing for a siege. Excellent, Vorthak replied. We will crush their pathetic fleet and then cleanse the surface. How long until we reach the system? 18 hours, War Leader. Vorthak studied tactical displays showing Krex ship positions. His forces were arranged in the traditional attack formation that had proven successful against dozens of other species. Fast cruisers would engage and destroy enemy defenses, while heavy battleships moved in for the killing blow. Any word from our scouts about potential reinforcements? He asked. Negative. The Veltari sent diplomatic missions to several species, but none have responded with military support. A few offered to accept refugees, but no one is willing to fight us. This did not surprise Vorthak. The Krex had built their reputation on overwhelming force and absolute brutality. Most species surrendered rather than face total extinction. Those few that chose to fight had learned too late that the Krex showed no mercy. Maintain current course, Vorthak ordered. Signal all fleet commanders to begin final weapons checks. I want every system at maximum efficiency when we arrive. The human fleet moved through space like a vast migration of mechanical predators. Admiral Jihoon stood in the command center of the battleship Sovereign, watching as tactical displays showed the positions of nearly 1,000 ships under his command. Estimated time to Veltara Prime? He asked his navigation officer. 14 hours at current speed, Admiral. Any word from our scouts about Krex positions? Commander Donghyun stepped forward with a data pad full of intelligence reports. Long range? Sensors have detected the main Krex fleet approximately 6 hours ahead of our current position. They appear to be maintaining standard approach formation. Standard formation? Yes, sir. They are approaching in a single large group with no advanced screening elements. Their ships are arranged for maximum firepower concentration, but they have no picket ships or early warning systems. Admiral Jihoon smiled grimly. They have never faced real opposition. Send word to all fleet commanders. Prepare for engagement sequence Alpha 7. Throughout the human fleet, captains and crews made final preparations for battle. Captain Wu Jin aboard the heavy cruiser Retribution reviewed targeting data with his weapons officer. Commander Yunji synchronized her destroyer squadron's electronic warfare systems. Lieutenant Sangho coordinated supply distribution to ensure every ship had maximum ammunition. The humans approached warfare differently than any species the galaxy had ever seen. Where others relied on individual ship combat or formal dueling between champions, humans used coordinated group tactics. Every vessel in their fleet was designed to work together as part of a larger whole. Dr. So-young monitored communications from her position aboard the command ship. Admiral, we are intercepting Krex battle communications. They appear to be completely unaware of our approach. What are they saying? Standard pre-battle preparations. They are discussing how to divide up Veltari territory after the conquest. No mention of any potential interference. 6 hours later, the leading elements of the human fleet reached the outer edge of the Veltara system. Captain Minji commanded the advanced scout group, 12 fast cruisers tasked with gathering intelligence on Krex positions. Contact, reported her sensor officer. Multiple Krex ships at bearing 27 Mark IV. Range approximately 8 light minutes. How many? I count 312 vessels, Captain. They are in standard Krex attack formation approaching the 4th planet. Captain Minji studied the tactical display. The Krex fleet was spread across several million cubic kilometers of space, with heavy battleships at the center and faster cruisers on the flanks. It was in formation designed to overwhelm enemy defenses through concentrated firepower. Signal. The Admiral, she ordered. Enemy fleet detected and catalogued, requesting permission to engage. Admiral Jihoon's response came back within minutes. Permission granted. All ships, execute engagement sequence Alpha 7. Weapons free. The human fleet began to spread out into attack formation. Unlike the Krex, who fought in a single massive group, the humans divided their forces into smaller battle groups that could coordinate their attacks while maintaining tactical flexibility. Commander Yunji led Battle Group 3, consisting of 47 destroyers and light cruisers. Their mission was to engage Krex screening forces and eliminate enemy sensors. Battle Group 1, commanded by Captain Jisoo, contained the heavy battleships that would engage the main Krex battle line. Battle Group 2 provided electronic warfare, support, and fighter cover. The Krex were still completely unaware of the approaching danger. War Leader Vorthak was reviewing final approach vectors when his sensor operator suddenly looked up from his station. War Leader, I am detecting unusual gravitational disturbances at the edge of the system. Probably debris from the asteroid field, Vorthak replied dismissively. Continue approach. Sir, the disturbances are increasing. It looks like ships dropping out of hyperspace. Now Vorthak paid attention. How many ships? I cannot get an accurate reading. The signatures are unfamiliar. Warning alarms began to sound throughout the Krex fleet as more human ships appeared on their sensors. What had started as a few unknown contacts quickly grew to dozens, then hundreds. War Leader, the sensor operator said in a shaking voice. I count over 800 ships. Unknown configuration. They are moving to intercept our fleet. Vorthak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. No species in the galaxy maintained fleets of that size. War Leader Vorthak had never experienced defeat before. In 3 centuries of warfare, the Krex had never retreated from any battle. Their philosophy was simple: destroy the enemy completely or die trying. Now, for the first time in Krex history, he found himself ordering a withdrawal. All ships emergency retreat to Krexmoor, he transmitted to his fleet. Maximum speed. The human forces did not pursue immediately. Instead, they maintained formation around the Veltara system, establishing what appeared to be defensive positions. This confused Vorthak even more. Most species would either flee after such a battle or attempt to negotiate. These unknown aliens seemed content to wait. Only half of his original fleet managed to escape. 156 Krex ships had been destroyed in less than 4 hours of combat. The humans had lost exactly 7 vessels, all to accidents, or friendly fire rather than enemy action. War Leader, his communications officer, reported, "We are receiving priority signals from High Command. They demand a full report." Vorthak dreaded making that report. How could he explain that the mighty Krex fleet had been crushed by an unknown species? How could he describe the human tactics that seemed to violate every principle of civilized warfare? The journey back to Krexmoor took 6 days. During that time, Vorthak reviewed battle recordings over and over, trying to understand what had gone wrong. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen before. They used pack tactics, concentrating multiple ships against single targets. They employed electronic warfare to disrupt Krex communications and sensors. Most disturbing of all, they showed no hesitation about destroying enemies completely. Krexmoor was the heart of the Dominion, a fortress world surrounded by orbital defense platforms and protected by the largest fleet in Krex space. Surely these mysterious humans would not dare attack such a stronghold directly. Meanwhile, Admiral Jihoon convened a strategy meeting aboard the battleship Sovereign. The initial engagement had provided valuable intelligence about Krex capabilities and tactics. Their ships are fast and well armed, reported Captain Minji, but they rely too heavily on individual combat skills. They seem unable to adapt to coordinated group tactics. What about their defenses? Jihoon asked. Commander Donghyun activated tactical displays showing intelligence gathered from the battle. Their shields are strong but not properly coordinated. Their weapons are powerful but have limited range compared to our systems. Most importantly, they appear to have no electronic warfare capabilities at all. Dr. So-Young added her analysis of Krek's psychology. They are genuinely shocked by our tactics. Their communications during the battle showed complete confusion. They kept trying to issue individual challenges for single combat. Admiral Ji-hoon studied the data carefully. The Kreks were dangerous opponents, but they fought according to rigid patterns that could be exploited. What do we know about their home system? Krexmore is heavily fortified, Dong-hyun replied. Over 200 orbital defense platforms, plus their reserve fleet of approximately 400 ships. They have never lost a defensive battle. They have never fought humans before, Ji-hoon said simply. Prepare the fleet for assault operations, Captain. Hyun-woo commanded the siege fleet's advance elements. His battle group consisted of specialized ships designed for exactly this type of operation. Heavily armored vessels capable of surviving intense defensive fire while delivering devastating attacks against fixed positions. The human approach to siege warfare was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Most species either attempted to starve out defenders or launched costly frontal assaults. Humans had developed a third option: technological superiority combined with overwhelming firepower. All ships report ready for Operation Hammerfall, Hyun-woo's tactical officer announced. Begin the approach, Hyun-woo ordered. The human fleet moved toward Krexmore in a formation that seemed almost ceremonial. Ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, maintaining precise distances and speeds. To Kreks observers, it looked like the humans were either supremely confident or completely insane. War leader Vorthak stood in the command center of the primary orbital fortress, watching the approaching human fleet with growing unease. The platforms around Krexmore had been built over centuries, each one a technological masterpiece capable of destroying entire fleets. Range to targets? He asked his weapons coordinator. Entering maximum engagement range in 30 minutes, war leader. All platforms, prepare to fire on my command. The Kreks defense grid was designed around concentrated energy weapons that could punch through the heaviest armor. Each platform mounted dozens of massive particle cannons, creating overlapping fields of fire that should be impossible to penetrate. But the humans were not approaching like any enemy the Kreks had ever faced. Instead of trying to rush through the defensive fire, they stopped just outside weapons range and began deploying something the Kreks had never seen before. Commander Nari coordinated the orbital bombardment from her position aboard the battlecruiser Vengeance. Her ship carried specialized weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Kinetic bombardment systems capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Target acquisition complete, her weapons officer reported. All platforms identified and ranged. Begin bombardment sequence, Nari ordered. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The human ships unleashed a coordinated barrage using weapons that defied galactic understanding of physics and engineering. Relativistic missiles that could not be intercepted because they moved too fast to track. Gravitational weapons that created localized space distortions. Energy beams that seemed to bend the laws of thermodynamics. The Kreks defense platforms had been designed to withstand conventional attacks. They were not prepared for weapons that operated on principles their builders had never imagined. Platform 7 is gone, reported Vorthak's sensor operator. Platform 12 is venting atmosphere. Platform 3 has lost all power. One by one, the pride of Kreks military engineering was systematically destroyed. Platforms that had stood guard for centuries vanished in flashes of exotic energy. Defense grids that had never been breached crumbled like sandcastles. Impossible, Vorthak whispered. Those platforms were designed to be indestructible. War leader, his communications officer called. We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Ji-hoon's image appeared on the main display. His expression was calm and professional, showing no emotion despite the massive destruction his forces had just unleashed. War leader Vorthak, Ji-hoon said, I am Admiral Ji-hoon of the Terran Fleet. You have one opportunity to surrender your forces and submit to judgment for crimes against sentient species. Vorthak snarled at the display. We are Kreks. We do not surrender to prey species. Then you will share the fate of your defense platforms, Jihoon replied. All human ships, commence final assault. The human fleet moved forward into the now defenseless system. Krexmore had been stripped of its orbital defenses in less than 2 hours. The remaining Krex ships tried to form a defensive line, but they were outnumbered 2-1 by human forces that had already proven their superiority. Colonel Minho led the ground assault forces aboard the transport Thunder Bay. His Marines were equipped with the latest human military technology, powered armor, advanced weapons, and tactical systems that allowed perfect coordination between units. The Krex had assumed that humans, coming from what appeared to be a garden world, would be weak in ground combat. They were about to learn how wrong that assumption was. Drop zones secured, Minho reported as his forces established beachheads on the planet's surface. Beginning advance on primary targets. The Krex ground forces fought with desperate courage, but they were facing an enemy that fought wars differently than anyone they had ever encountered. Human Marines used combined arms tactics, coordinating infantry, armor, artillery, and air support in ways that the individual combat-focused Krex could not counter. War leader Vorthak made planetfall with his personal guard, hoping to organize resistance from the surface. He had been a warrior for over 2 centuries and had never been defeated in personal combat. He encountered Colonel Minho's forces at the entrance to the planetary command complex. The human soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their powered armor making them look like walking tanks. Their weapons fired projectiles that could punch through Krex scale hide like paper. "Surrender now and your lives will be spared," Minho announced through his armor's external speakers. Vorthak drew his ceremonial combat blade, a weapon that had tasted the blood of hundreds of enemies. "I am war leader of the Krex Dominion. Do not yield to inferior species." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of technological superiority. Vorthak's blade, sharp enough to cut through starship hull plating, could not even scratch the surface of human combat armor. His personal guard, elite warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, fell to human weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. In the end, war leader Vorthak died as he had lived, fighting to the last breath. But his death marked the end of something that had terrorized the galaxy for over a century. Back in orbit, Ambassador Tejo watched the final moments of the battle from the observation deck of a human support ship. 6 months after the fall of Krexmore, the galaxy was a very different place. The Krex Dominion, which had existed for over a century as one of the most feared military powers in known space, had been completely erased. Not defeated or conquered, but eliminated so thoroughly that many younger species had never heard of them. Captain Jisoo stood on the bridge of her ship, the humanitarian vessel New Dawn, watching as medical supplies and construction materials were unloaded onto the surface of Ketravel. This world had been one of the last planets attacked by the Krex before their empire collapsed. The surface was scarred by orbital bombardment, but life was slowly returning. "Captain," her logistics officer reported, "the Ketravelli refugees are requesting additional medical personnel. They have over 10,000 injured civilians in the temporary shelters." "Deploy medical teams 7 through 12, Jisoo ordered. "And contact Admiral Jihoon. Tell him we need more hospital ships in this sector." The human response to victory had surprised everyone, including their allies. Most conquering species would have claimed former Krex territory for themselves or demanded tribute from grateful civilizations. Instead, humanity had launched the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history. Dr. Seokman worked in a temporary medical facility on the surface of Ketravel, treating refugees from a dozen different species. His patients included Ketravelli, survivors with radiation poisoning, Altarian miners who had been worked as slaves, and even a few Krex civilians who had been abandoned when their military forces fled. "Doctor," his assistant called, "the Veltari delegation has arrived." Ambassador Taiho entered the medical facility accompanied by several other Veltari officials. 6 months of working with humans had changed him considerably. He moved with more confidence now and spoke with the authority of someone who had seen what real power could accomplish. "Dr. Seokman," Taiho said, "on behalf of the Veltari Confederation, I want to thank you again for everything humanity has done. We are just doing what needs to be done, Seokmin replied, continuing to treat a young Ketravelli female with severe burns. These people suffered because of the Kreks. Helping them recover is the least we can do. But you could have just destroyed the Kreks fleet and left, Taiho pointed out. Instead, you have spent months rebuilding worlds that were not even part of your territory. Dr. Seokmin paused in his work and looked at the Veltari ambassador. Ambassador, do you have children? Yes, 2 daughters. If someone hurt your daughters, what would you do? I would do whatever was necessary to protect them and help them heal. That is what we are doing here. These people were hurt by bullies. We stopped the bullies. Now we help the victims recover. This was perhaps the most incomprehensible aspect of human nature to other species. Their capacity for both devastating warfare and compassionate rebuilding seemed to exist simultaneously without any contradiction. Meanwhile, in the capital system of the Galactic Council, emergency sessions had been ongoing for months as representatives from hundreds of species tried to understand what humanity's emergence as a military power meant for the balance of galactic politics. Admiral Yuna represented Earth at these discussions. She was younger than most galactic diplomats, but her presence at the council meetings carried weight far beyond her years. Behind her sat the implicit threat of 800 human warships that had proven capable of destroying any military force in known space. The question before us, declared Council Speaker Veltaran, an ancient being whose species had helped found the galactic government, is how to integrate humanity into our existing structures. They have demonstrated military capabilities that exceed anything we have previously encountered. They have also demonstrated humanitarian principles that put many of our member species to shame, added Councillor Kirix from the Altarian Republic. Their relief efforts in former Krex territory have saved millions of lives. That may be true, countered Councillor Thex Moran of the Zeridian Empire, but their military power represents a fundamental threat to galactic stability. No single species should possess such overwhelming force. Admiral Yuna listened to the debate with growing amusement. These ancient civilizations were trying to apply traditional political frameworks to something that existed outside their experience. They saw humanity as either a threat to be contained or an ally to be courted, but they missed the fundamental point. Honored counselors, she said, rising to address the assembly, I think you misunderstand our position. We are not seeking to join your political structures or establish ourselves as a galactic power. The chamber fell silent. Every representative leaned forward to hear her words. We came to help the Veltari because they asked for help. We destroyed the Kreks because they threatened innocent people. We are rebuilding damaged worlds because that is what should be done. None of this was done for political advantage or territorial gain. Councillor Thexmoran seemed skeptical. Then what do you want? What are humanity's goals in galactic affairs? We want to be left alone to live our lives in peace, Admiral Yuna replied. But we also want everyone else to be able to live their lives in peace. If someone threatens that peace, we will respond. And if the Council decides that human military power represents a threat that must be contained. Admiral Yuna smiled, and something in that expression made several councillors shift uncomfortably in their seats. Then you would discover why the Kreks no longer exist. The threat was delivered so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that it took several seconds for its implications to sink in. Humanity was not asking to join the galactic community as equals. They were informing the galaxy of how things would work going forward. Back in human space, Ambassador Taiho met with Admiral Jihoon aboard Station Kepler. The Veltari diplomat had become something of a celebrity in galactic politics, known as the being who had first made contact with humanity. Admiral, Taiho said, the Galactic Council is still debating how to respond to your intervention in Krex territory. Let them debate, Jihoon replied. We have work to do. The Council is concerned about the precedent this sets. They worry that other species might call on humanity to solve their problems. Other species should solve their own problems, Jihoon said. We only intervened because the Kreks represented a threat to civilized existence. If someone else follows their path, they will receive the same treatment. Taiho activated a holographic display showing current galactic political situations. There are several ongoing conflicts that some species think might warrant human intervention. The hegemony is enslaving primitive worlds. The corporate states are strip mining inhabited systems. The militant orders are conducting religious purges. Admiral Ji-hoon studied the information carefully. Are any of these situations existential threats like the Kreks were? Not exactly. They are terrible but not species-ending. Then those civilizations need to find their own solutions. We are not the galaxy's police force. But you could be, Taiho said quietly. Your military could end any of these conflicts in days. You could impose peace throughout the galaxy. At what cost? Ji-hoon asked. If we became the ultimate authority, what would happen to the independence and growth of other species? They would become dependent on us to solve every problem. That would not be helping them. That would be crippling them. This was another aspect of human philosophy that confused other species. They had the power to dominate the galaxy, but they chose not to use it except in extreme circumstances. Dr. So-young had spent months studying the psychological impact of humanity's emergence on other species. Her reports made for interesting reading. The Kreks extinction has had a profound effect on galactic psychology, she wrote in her latest analysis. Aggressive species are reconsidering their expansion plans. Peaceful civilizations feel more secure. But there is also a growing dependency mentality among some populations who expect humans to solve their problems. Admiral Ji-hoon reviewed her recommendations as he prepared for another round of council meetings. The galaxy was adjusting to the reality of human power, but that adjustment was creating new challenges. A priority communication arrived from Captain Minji at the border of former Krek space. Admiral, we have a situation. The Valdris Collective is claiming several former Kreks worlds as their territory. They are demanding that human forces withdraw immediately. What is their military strength? Ji-hoon asked. Approximately 200 ships, modern designs but no combat experience. And their intentions toward the refugee populations? Unknown. They claim they want to restore order to the region. Admiral Ji-hoon considered the situation carefully. The Valdris Collective was known for its harsh treatment of conquered populations. If they gained control of former Krek's territory, the refugees that humanity had been protecting would likely face slavery or worse. Signal the collective leadership, he ordered. Inform them that human forces will remain in former Krek space until refugee resettlement is complete. If they attempt to interfere with humanitarian operations, they will be treated as hostile forces. Sir, that might be seen as an act of war. Then they should not interfere with our operations. The message was delivered through official diplomatic channels. The Valdris response came within hours. Their fleet would arrive in former Krek space within 1 week to claim their rightful territory.